All right, less than a week before Tennessee voters head to the polls, the candidates for governor are making their final pitch.
And with it, some big promises. So we asked one simple question. Can the next governor actually do what they're saying?
To answer that, investigative reporter Stacey Cameron went beyond the campaign rhetoric to verify some of the boldest claims.
Unless you've been living under a slab of Tennessee limestone, you know it's election season, and the race for governor is in full swing. And that means a wave of ads and interviews from the top three candidates. But can the next governor actually do what they're promising? We fact-checked 6 of the biggest claims, starting with Senator Marsha Blackburn.
I'm Marsha Blackburn. As governor, I'll deport illegals.
Not so fast. Under federal law, a Tennessee governor can't deport anyone. Blackburn could direct state agencies to cooperate with ICE, but actually removing someone from the country? No. That's a federal responsibility. Next, Blackburn's take on cell phones in public schools.
My plan, bell to bell. No cell, no excuses, no exceptions.
She could do that, kind of, but not alone. She'd need the legislature to act first. And here's the thing, lawmakers mostly did this last year, requiring school districts to limit phones during class. Now, Blackburn's bell-to-bell ban would go a step further, but it's not starting from scratch. Now, on to Congressman John Rose.
I'm running for governor to keep China from buying up our farmland.
That may sound like a new proposal. Turns out it isn't. Tennessee already has a law restricting China and other foreign adversaries from buying agricultural land. So as Governor Rose could enforce that law or ask lawmakers to make it tougher, but the law is already on the books.
Starbucks pushed DEI and weird transgender stuff. Now they want 30 million taxpayer dollars from us. No thanks.
Here, Rose is talking about the state's proposed incentives to help bring part of Starbucks headquarters to Nashville. So could a governor simply stop that money? Well, not alone. Those incentives go through Tennessee's economic development process and the state funding board. Now, a governor has influence, but not the final say. And depending on the timing, that deal could be already done before the next governor takes office. Finally, let's talk State Representative Monty Fritz, who says if he's elected governor, the First Amendment wouldn't stop him from banning mosques.
What we miss oftentimes in the First Amendment is the first word, Congress, and it limits that power of Congress.
Fritz is right about one thing. The First Amendment does begin with the word Congress, but that's where the history lesson ends. Because for more than a century, the U.S. Supreme Court has held that the 14th Amendment makes those same First Amendment protections apply to state governments. So no, he can't simply ignore it and ban mosques, and he can't ban Islam either.
It's not necessarily religion, it's a political movement. I find that Islam is incongruent with both our U.S. and our Tennessee Constitution.
There's just one problem with that. Whether Fritz believes Islam is a religion, it doesn't matter, because federal law makes that decision, and for decades, the U.S. Supreme Court has said Islam is a religion protected by the First Amendment, meaning a Tennessee governor couldn't outlaw Islam by simply calling it something else. So remember, campaign ads are built to persuade, but when it comes to promises, whatever any candidate says they'll do if elected, take it with a grain of salt. For WSMV4, I'm investigative reporter Stacey Cameron.